Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 371. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the super sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
You're wearing your House of L today.
Dun, 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 dun. And yes, if you're curious, I did hit the Superman pose while I was singing it.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about Arrow, and we're going to be talking through, we're right now on November 25th, so everything up to current day. This is actually the episode right before the Barry Allen one we've talking about, so if you haven't been caught up to the point with the Barry Allen two-parter that's coming up, then you're going to want to skip the Arrow sequence, so that way you don't get anything spoiled on that. We're also talking about Animal Man number 25, and the first three parts of the Superman Krypton Returns storyline from Action Comics Annual number 2, Superboy 25, and Supergirl number 25. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Speaking of Superman books, they have on sale for $3.99 regularly, 40% off, only $2.39. Action Comics number 27. Remember, if you like variant editions with those variant covers, I know that Jim and I are big fans of picking up various variant covers. They got the variant cover for issue number 27 for $12. And they do this throughout their site, so make sure to check if you like variant covers to get a chance to pre-order those, which is really a nice feature to be able to get them that way. They also have that Adventures of Superman, which is a digital comic book, issue number 9. This is a collection of, it's usually 3 of the digital stories. It's regularly $3.99, 40% off, only $2.39 for issue number 9 of that. And that's a great series. I'm really digging that the same way I've been enjoying Legends of the Dark Knight, so I want to recommend that. Remember, they are a digital partner. So if you have a Comixology account, an iVerse Media Diamond Digital account, or a My Digital Comics account, you earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. So make sure to link those accounts. And I want to thank them for sponsoring us over at InStockTrades.com. This is your hardcover and trade paperback collected edition source, where you can pick up things like Batman Detective Comics hardcover volume 3, Emperor Penguin, collecting Detective Comics 13 to 18. The Dark Knight faces deadly foes, including Poison Ivy, Clayface, and the Penguin in these stories. This volume includes chapters from The Epic Death of the Family and Requiem sagas. This is written by John Layman with art by Jason Fabok and Andy Clark. It's 192 pages, 50% off, only $12.49 for a for a hardcover. I should say, I almost said trade paperback because it's trade paperback prices for a hardcover volume at only $12.49. If you haven't picked this up, this is the way to do it. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. With the holidays coming up, that's a site that you want to hit if you want to get gifts for people that are close to you. I want to thank We now have a show sponsor that sells trains, Jim.
I think I can. I think I can.
I think I can finish this ad. I think I can. In Stock Trades at DCBService.com have been a wonderful sponsor of our show and many podcasts out there, so please continue to sponsor them as well. And James, I've gabbed on long enough. What kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics as well as TV shows that we are discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books or seen the most recent episodes, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
It's time to
shoot. Do it. Let's do it right.
No, I was shooting an arrow at you. I wasn't doing any of that nonsense. Apparently I missed. Let's talk some comics.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the Atom.
Jim, for our opening conversation on this episode, I would like to discuss the TV show Arrow. You know, especially for our podcast, this is kind of like our ongoing program right now. And some big things have happened, in particular with Black Canary. I'd like to start there if we could, because a lot of content has come our way with Black Canary. Did you see that coming, that it was going to wind up, let's just say it, that it was Sarah?
You know what? They cheated, and I'm angry at them because I thought it could be her, but then it's not the same actress as that was done before. So I was like, dang it, you swerved me, curse you.
Yeah, I actually really liked what they did. I love the character. I loved her story. I like that it ties in with things like the League of Shadows, and we've got the whole assassins coming into the Arrow universe. They've done a great job of keeping it grounded in a certain amount of reality, while having enough comic book lore and enough comic book style content, and that line that they skirt that pushes it just a little above and beyond. I'm a big fan. My favorite superheroes are the street level characters. Batman is my gateway in. As a kid growing up, I was a huge fan. I had an Ollie Queen action figure. I was a huge fan of the character and very fascinated by him. I didn't, because of the fact that he wasn't as media oriented as some of the other heroes. I was a fan of Robin Hood growing up and things like that. So he fit that kind of avenue for me. The first Green Arrow that I really read consistently was when Longbow Hunters came out. And then from then on, I just became hooked. And I read content before and content afterwards. My exposure to the character was, of course, through things like the Justice League and team-up books and stuff like that, and I loved him. And he actually, from time to time, would have in issues of Batman that I had gotten. I don't remember what title it was, so please excuse me on this. But he was one of the co-features, the backup features, in the issue. So you got to follow some adventures of Green Arrow. I loved the character, the beard, the whole outfit, the fact that this guy was this archer. There was something about characters when I was growing up that you could believe that, like, on some level you could train and become that character, that I found fascinating. But yet, knowing that these people were so far above and beyond you, especially as you got older, you're like, there's no way I could do that. But he did, and how was that? And I love that kind of stuff. So those were characters that I always, for some reason, gravitated towards. And to see Green Arrow being brought to the television screen now with this kind of programming, bringing in so much of the DC universe, Amanda Waller. I love the additions, though, of characters like Diggle and Team Arrow. You and I have always loved that. I know when I think of our episodes on the show, we talked about Green Arrow, and your love for Green Arrow really came more from the concept of Team Arrow. And so how are you feeling about the way this season's going?
Oh, I'm absolutely loving it. And let me give the real honest answer about with Black Canary. Mm-hmm. In my head, I did think it would be kind of neat if it was Sarah, but I never thought they were actually going to go that way. So when the pieces started laying out, and I loved how they did lay out the pieces, so right before the big reveal, you're able to figure it out if you're thinking that way. But it was like only seconds before the actual reveal that I was confirmed, oh my God, it's her. It's got to be her. It's got to be. Then takes off the wig. I'm like, it is her. I'm like, cool. It was a neat progression with that. But just the concept of Team Arrow is awesome. This character, it's grounded in real world. And that was the thing we started from day one of liking this, seeing him with the parkour, seeing him with the type of physical training where he's not just shooting trick arrows. He was shooting real arrows. He wasn't shooting fancy special, boxing glove arrows or net arrows or ice arrows or things like that. There was an actual realistic, design and usage of the character. And I've always loved that. And as the seasons progress, as the character's growing on, the hero is coming out. It's no longer the vigilante. It's now the hero of Starland City. It's that person who's fighting for the little guy. And I love seeing that birth of the hero. And I love seeing that it's the people around him that get him doing this. Originally Diggle was one of the big proponents behind going after criminals off of the list. Then when Felicity gets added into this, she's about, the no kill. You start seeing the growth of the hero coming from all the different parts, even from Tommy's death. Mm-hmm. You see that final, that pledge, to his friend not to take a life. It was just this really cool stuff. And as the season's going on, we're getting more introduction of the DC universe that, I don't know about you, I'm sitting there just every time I'm watching the episode, I'm doing my happy dance going, yay! Just at the little bits here, little things there, but also just what's being introduced.
You know what I love about the show? I love that the show matters to me, not because it's like, ideally what drew me to it, the fact that it was going to be a Green Arrow show. Cool. I'm on board, right? I love that now it's become my favorite show on television, not because it's just a superhero show, because of the quality of the writing, the characters. I actually care. The characters on the show matter to me. If you took out the fact that it was based on, comic book lore, and you still developed these characters in, without that kind of draw for me, I would still be drawn to this show because of the fact that it's just got great writing and characters that are believable, and you understand why they're friends. And I like that there's like subplots going on, like Roy Harper and, Thea Queen, and Thea Queen's true identity. Is she a queen? Is she a Merlin? And the reveal of John Barrowman coming back as Malcolm Merlin, wow. Yeah. I knew that he wasn't dead. I didn't see him coming where he did. Did you see that being the reason why she got off in the court case? I got to admit, I was blind. I didn't see it.
Here's the thing with me and court cases in TV shows, they never really get it right. And it's nothing against the writers of the show. It's just, to tell a story on TV, you have to do certain things that would never actually happen in a real courtroom. Like, for example, a witness, a person who's being called to the stand to testify will never be actually sitting in the gallery. So since Thea was going to be called up, she would never have been sitting in the gallery the whole time. Same thing is the person on trial never takes the stand. That's rule number one. You never take the stand. And just some of the lines of questioning, it's, so as I'm watching it, I'm seeing the normal pitfalls and traps that we get in a TV courtroom. But when everything, cleared up way too easily, I was like, wait a minute, this is way too, I'm like, and that's when it's done. I'm like, somebody bought this trial. So I just started going through my head, the only person that popped up, I was thinking it could be Ra's al Ghul. Knowing that, Merlin was a member of the League of Assassins, maybe he bought the trial to continue on the process. But to me, in my head, as when the driver drove her away and was meeting someone else, I was like, that ain't Ra's al Ghul. They're not going to introduce him this way. They're going to if they bring him in the mix, they're bringing in a different way. So again, it was one of those things right before the arrows hit the chest of the driver. I'm like, it's Merlin. He's got to be alive still. 3 arrows to the heart. There he goes. Okay, yeah, it's Merlin. And so it was one of those things where I figured it out a second before the reveal, which actually, that's one of the things I like about this, where it's giving me the evidence to make the decision and to come up with it, but it's not spoiling the process. I'm not going, I saw this coming a mile away. No, it was until that very split second right before when I get that last piece of the puzzle that I know, okay, who it is.
Yeah, I thought I was adult because I'm with you. The parking lot is where I'm like, wait a minute, why are they stopping here? Oh, no. Yeah. That's where it became clear. I was with you with the court case. I knew somebody was involved. Somebody did it. But I wasn't thinking Merlin. I was thinking they were alluding to this mysterious benefactor that was going on earlier. I didn't know if that was somehow tied to Brother Blood or if there was somebody else. I didn't know what was driving that, but I thought it was fascinating, that this was what was happening, and I knew it was, something that I didn't expect her to get off and be going home, and that was a nice swerve. That's what I love about the show. There's so much going on, but none of it feels rushed. The court drama with her, I mean, if you take a look at how far into the season we are, that was really well played out. And it should be something that has a major impact on this town. And we're still going to feel the impact of this beyond, because people are going to be very unhappy that she's out and about. So this is going to be a huge problem for the Queen family. And you got to know Brother Blood's not going to be too happy about this either.
Oh, no. It's going to mess up some of his plans. But actually, you think about it, he could use the fact that she's out to his advantage. Mm-hmm. And because we're seeing him already kind of play the game, manipulate the Queen family, get him in the position to elevate his status, to elevate who he is within the community. And that was the thing I really enjoyed about seeing Ollie try to make a difference. But the whole time it's, tainted. The Queen name is tainted. And it's the whole everything dealing with the trauma, the post situation, the city, the reaction. I really enjoy how, it's taking a life of its own. You see that it's going beyond just the simple of, they tried to kill the city. Wait, there's going to be consequences. There's going to be retaliations. There's going to be, people who aren't going to accept, hey, it was my mom, not me, answer. And we directly saw that type of hostility. We saw that type of, again, very realistic reaction. When people feel wronged on the epic level that these people were, they want to find somebody to blame. They want to find someone to lash out. And there was a great usage of Brother Blood into this, about how he's just working the system, how he's going to, kind of manipulate the tragedy we're seeing with the prisoners escaping from Ironhide's prison, how that kind of worked the system. I love how it just is one massive event, has all these spider webs coming off of it, all these other little cracks and crevices that are coming from this one major explosion. It's a really cool, tapestry.
Now, not this coming week, but the following week, we've got the 2-part mid-season finale, which is going to be Barry Allen coming out of the show. I'm super excited.
A Flash is coming. Yeah, I'm excited for this. It's got to be that particle enhancing device that does it, that they keep mentioning and bringing up. That's got to give him his powers. And I'm very excited to see a meta, in this universe, because once we introduce one meta, there's possibility of more coming into the mix. There's possibility of more, meta genes. And of course, that always gets me hopeful for a dun, 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 dun moment where we can get some Superman action, maybe some Clark Kent action. I still, I know it'll never happen, because of whatever reasons. They don't like to have them in multiple places, but I would love to have Bruce Wayne on this.
Well, here's the question, though. How do we know we aren't going to get, there's rumors every so often that we might get these guys in the movie.
That'd be wonderful.
For a cameo, at the end or something like that, which those are rumors, so you got to take them with a grain of salt. But why not? I honestly think they're kind of silly if they don't, if their Justice League Green Arrow, if they have one, should be this guy. Their Justice League Flash should be the Flash that they're creating now, if they're successful. Why not use these vehicles as ways to introduce your Justice League?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say 100% yes, do it. But that's me. That's me, and you would probably say yes. And I know there's a lot of people listening to the podcast saying, yeah, that'd be awesome. But again, I don't know if, the Hollywood executives, the one who actually control the power.
S.H.I.E.L.D. We've got a TV show on right now that is set in a movie universe.
Exactly. And there's coming up, I think, next week or in a couple of weeks, we've got the Thor tie into what just happened, in Thor 2. So we're seeing actual real version, real movie active going into the TV. So they could do it on the DC side. This could very easily, hopefully, happen, because I would love it. Because, again, this is a great Green Arrow. Let's bring him to the big screen. Let's use this as the introduction of Flash. So the Justice League movie will have more of a boom to it, where it won't be just introducing these characters, how they come to be. Well, they came to be in Green Arrow. Watch that show. It'd be a great crossover, great tie-in between them. It would work for me.
Am I the only one that, is liking the idea of perhaps Ollie and Felicity getting together?
No, I'm digging that as well. And I saw that. You keep seeing the little glimmer. You keep saying, hey, what's going on here? Is it now? Is it all on her end towards him? Is there a mutual thing? Because it looks like there's a little bit her to him, but he's right now not either. He's either too stupid to recognize it, or he's intentionally walking away from it. No,
he did recognize it. Because remember, they had that confrontation after what happened with, what's her name? I'm drawing a blank. The female who's trying to take over or being a part of his company. Yeah. I am so drawing a blank right now. I feel terrible that I am. It'll come to me. But let's after that.
I just call her River Tan.
Yeah, exactly. But after they had their little fling and slept together, it's Summer Glau who's doing it. Isabel Rochev. After they had their kind of little fling together, Ollie and Felicity had that confrontation, and Ollie, talked to her about how he pushes away those that he could really care about. So, I mean, there was that moment there. I felt that was genuine. I felt that there was something really there in that moment where he was recognizing there's something with Felicity. And then there's been times where he's rescued her that I felt that there was something more there. Not necessarily on the same level as with Laurel, but there's something there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just there's something a part of it where like I'm actually rooting a little bit more right now for Felicity than Laurel.
Oh, with the whole Count Vertigo thing, everything that happened there. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, he was going to hurt you. There was no choice. That was a kind of a cool moment, and it was that was another one of those tenderness moments between the two of them where I'm like, hey, is there something going on here?
I liked how that all played out, where the villains from the past came back, and we got to see more of that. I don't know if I agreed too much with Vertigo dying, but I liked what it did as far as the progression of the story, with Ollie.
Yeah, I'm never a big fan of killing off villains. I liked having the rogues gallery, but I think Ollie's got enough room right now in his gallery that killing off the one because it elevated the story, because there will be, I'm hoping there will be consequences because he killed again, because the Hood, isn't, Arrow is still the Hood. Arrow killed. So it's that whole kind of shifting from being called Hood to Arrow. Well, he's still a vigilante. What's going on here? So it does add to, the story progression and the story development. So I'm okay with it. If he goes back to the pure killing again, that will I don't think I did like that as much, because there was a reason behind this. If every week there's always a reason for him to do it, then I probably would start having an issue.
The Island with Slade and with Shadow. Here was the thing. I was thinking at the end of last season, I'm like, wow, they're really getting close to wrapping up the Island storyline. I mean, where do you go from here? And boy, they not only have they continued it, but it feels like a natural progression versus a forced story to extend it, if that makes sense. Like, it's the next level. It's where the story goes following this. They brought in Ivo. A lot of the things that you expect to see from DC lore is coming in here, and not expecting that Sarah would be a part of that. I love it. It's just the whole thing, the way it plays out, plus what they're searching for on the island is very much what's going to make Deathstroke.
Oh God, yeah. And as soon as I saw Deathstroke get hurt, as soon as I saw Slade get hurt, and he was really messed up, I'm like, they got to do something to bring him back. There's going to be, and it gets the whole Deathstroke thing going. I was thinking, okay, here's where he's going to lose. Here's how he's going to lose his eye. Just everything that became, Deathstroke. I'm like, okay, we got something going on here. And as soon as they started talking about the sub, what's in the sub, I have to admit, I cheered out loud, because one, the actor who's playing Slade is awesome. Talk about just wonderful casting on everyone across the board, but Slade especially, because I'm sitting there chanting Crixus, as he's fighting, because that was the actor's character in the Spartacus from the Stars series, and it was just, you see this gladiator, this warrior in him, and I just keep going from that character to Slade as the same warrior, but there's still just that style to him that I'm like, okay, this is Slade Wilson, this is Deathstroke. He's not just some curl my mustache, evil villain. No, he is a killing machine, but he does have the code. And seeing him later on, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing him in the present-day Arrow universe, because he ain't dying on the island. It ain't going to happen.
No, and that's one of the things that I really like, is that there's no need right now with him to turn him into that. There's so much going on. You're building to something that's going to come down the road, where he can be a major foil in the storyline, a major event part in the present-day world. That's one of the things they're building. Shadow, what's Shadow's fate? Is Shadow going to live? Is Shadow going to die? I don't know, and I'm really excited to see where that goes as well.
I'm going to guess we're going to get a faked death, or Shadow's not actually... Ollie's going to think Shadow's dead. and when everything's said and done, just like he's probably going to think Slade's dead when everything is said and done on the island, even though neither one of them actually will. And I'm personally hoping we'll see Shadow, kind of slipping off to the side, just the images of her, down the line, and you see that she's pregnant. So you'll know that whole storyline with Ollie's kid, one day coming into the picture where, she's actually pregnant with Connor, and bring that, granted, it wouldn't be 18 years down the line of her bringing him into the mix, but the fact that the story exists and the fact that the character would someday come into play. I would love to see something like that when they finally eventually wrap up all the island stuff, which I'm hoping 2, maybe 3 years down the line before they finalize and wrap up the island.
I loved who Moira's defense was. Jean Loring.
Yeah.
Wanted to step on somebody, shrink down and step on somebody's brain. What a cool way to bring in the greater part of the DC universe again, and by bringing in, just characters that are winks and a nod to all of us. I just think that's something that has been really special about the show, from throwing in comic creators to throwing in location references, little tiny details that I think have just expanded this universe. One of the things that I really love about this is they took what worked on Smallville and have expanded on it and taken it to the next level. And none of this would have been possible, I don't think, without the success of Smallville as a show and how it continued to add more lore as it progressed. I think Arrow kicked out of the starting gate by taking that to the next level because Smallville had pushed that as far as it could as a show. And I don't know, it's something that I'm really, really enjoying about this. And I think that part is particularly neat.
Yeah, I gotta admit, though, that with the Jean Loring thing, it didn't initially sink in, who she was, because I was sitting there, I'm like, when they said the name a couple times, I actually had to go on the computer, type in a name, and as soon as I started typing, I'm like, oh, of course. Oh, why am I not seeing that? And and that was just one of those, smack myself in the head. And it's part of my enjoyment of watching the show, looking for the little stuff. Like when the news came on, quick, Diggle, turn to channel 52. Channel 52 news. I love just that little reference right there again to, the 52 to the universe. Of course, anytime they throw out a creator name and the different street names and the different, buildings and whatnot, it's one of those, kind of like you need to have that. If people don't, if people aren't in the comic book universe that are watching this, if there's people outside, it's not going to spoil anything. It's not going to ruin anything for them. They're still going to enjoy it. The story, they're still going to enjoy everything that comes down the line. But for people like us who read the comics, who have this back history and have this back knowledge, it's a little thing for us. It's that little Easter egg where we can go, yay, and have fun with it. It's, it's something that I'm really digging about Arrow. And it's, Smallville's developed this later on down the line and, kind of started giving a little more little Easter eggs here and there for the fans. Arrow right out the gate recognized, okay, this really worked in Smallville, let's run with it. And that was something I was very happy to see they actually went that route.
I liked that they had Linda Park on in the past, too.
Yeah.
That was Wally's wife.
Yeah.
And I was glad to see that they threw those nods in. I don't know, it's just something, these are people that you can throw in just as a wink and a nod to fans, and I think that's awesome. It's just a great show. Do you have any hopes for the future of the show? Like anywhere where you hope it will go from here? Because for me, I'm incredibly satisfied and I'm shocked all the time. I'm just excited for the next 2 Barry episodes. I'm not really thinking much beyond that. But are you? Did you have anything that you're like, I really hope they go here with it? Or
well, I still would, love, the Clark and or Bruce, and I would actually even do Clark Kent, not Superman. I would do, and I maybe even do Clark Kent before he actually becomes Superman. The whole where he's traveling, trying to find himself. He wanders through Starling City, and he sees this guy who's just this normal person who doesn't have any superpowers, who doesn't have anything, who's trying to make a difference. And it'd be kind of one of those things where he's like, hey, normal people can do this. Normal people are rising up. They need something else. And it'd be kind of a neat little tie-in, especially with how they had the whole big disaster with the Glades and everything. I think it would have been a really cool moment if there would have just been this Kansas farm boy helping out at a soup kitchen, and next thing you know, hey, Clark, can you get that? Sure, no problem. just a little nod, or Bruce Wayne, or even a mention of Bruce Wayne being drunk at some party, or this the billionaire playboy does it again, and someone make a comment to Ollie, hey, Wayne could give you a run for your money. Just a little nod to the fact that Bruce Wayne is building this, billionaire playboy routine to cover what he's doing as Batman, or what he will eventually do as Batman. Those are the little nods I'm always looking for now.
That is what I want more. I don't know that, because first of all, let me back up and say everything you said I agree with. But being realistic, we're not going to see, I don't think, Clark Kent or Bruce Wayne on the show, but the winks and the nods you're talking about, I think, are very possible. And I like that. I also don't want to see them do too much of the bringing in the shock value character, because, I'm more interested in Barry Allen because, we haven't seen him. And there's a chance to really develop that character. And I know that's going to spin off into its own show, and I think that's great. I also want to see them not get away from developing the great cast that they've got. Diggle is just as much of an exciting character for me now as Arrow is. And, I mean, he's become just a really fantastic Felicity, Laurel, and the whole intrigue with the courtroom and what she had to do and how she knows she has to live with that and how it's affecting her, to me says more about her character. I'm very passionate about that character because of how it's been played. And
definitely with, Laurel, I love how they're showing her with her substance abuse and how she's dealing with that. And, it's, again, a very realistic, thing that can happen. A very, definitely all the pressure and everything she's been under, I could see someone going down the path that way. And, of course, in my head, I'm always thinking, Roy and his, addiction that we had in the comic book, how it was, Dinah, who actually pulled him out, who helped him get through it. So we're seeing a groundwork being, a nice foundation being laid for somebody who will eventually help an addict, kind of get back on his feet, kind of rise back up and become something, get back to his life. And I think that for me is something, I'm thinking years down the line. I'm not going to, I'd say maybe 2-3 years minimum before they would even start entering this type of storyline. But it is a good groundwork, a good foundation that she's dealing with this right now. She's got her own dealings. She's got to slay, and she's got to, get a grip of it and kind of work through it. So these are some stuff that down the line, multiple years, I could see storylines playing out. Same thing with Diggle. This is a guy who, I felt terrible for him when you found out that he and his brother's ex-wife kind of had to go separate ways. But then, okay, he's not completely alone. He's not going to be alone. There's something with him maybe getting back with his ex-wife. Maybe something can come out of that. And who knows where that whole storyline is, especially considering she's Argus. So it's where that's going to play out. How can this come up? And again, not just Ollie Queen. Everybody else has a real life and a real, development.
Yeah, that's something where, to me, the fact that these characters feel alive is what I'm really enjoying about this show. They've become more than very flat characters that are just isolated to the episodes. I feel that they have lives that are beyond that. They're living and breathing characters, and I'm really enjoying that aspect of the show. When you start putting in a strong enough supporting cast, it makes the world much more believable. And I mean that with the villains as well as the heroes. There's so much going on in the city. Starling City is very much a living, breathing world. I wonder where the decision from Starling instead of Star City came from. I don't know I wonder what's driving that.
See, and it was funny because when the show first started, I was like, Starling, okay. Now Starling City just rolls off the tongue for me. I don't think anything different. But there is this thought in the back of my head that they may be doing where down the line they may rename the city because of something that happened, some big event or something, and they decide to go from Starling City to Star City. And that could be something about just, another major catastrophe, another major event or something that happens, causes them to say, you know what, Starling City is this, past of pain and suffering. We are now Star City. The city of the future, or whatever, however they go with it. Because I still think that's a possibility of where they could go. But if they don't, I'm not going to complain because, again, I'm comfortable with Starling City now because it is its own entity. It is its own universe.
I agree with you. I don't, really care one way or another if it, develops into Star City or not. I just was wondering what drove that decision because why, what does it matter either way? Especially with all the winks and nods they're doing to actual DC lore, it seemed like a strange omission, but nothing that really bothered me. It was just a question that was popping in my head. It's a terrific show. I genuinely look forward to each episode, and that says a lot because there's a lot of terrific and amazing television out there right now, and this is for me my favorite show on television now because of I just think the consistency. Episode after episode. I should say it's my favorite weekly program right now. There's some other program. There's another program in particular that I want to talk about that is actually my favorite program, but we will be talking about that our next show. It's Arrow is just absolutely amazing. Cool. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
Jim, for our next chat, we're going to talk about Animal Man number 25. The writer is Jeff Lemire. Artist, interior, and cover is Raphael Albuquerque, and I apologize because I'm butchering that. Colorist is Dave McCaig. Letterer is Jared K. Fletcher. Kyle Andrukiewicz, assistant editor or associate editor, and I apologize for any butchery there. And the editor is Joey Cavalieri. The group editor is Matt Idelson. I really want to apologize for any name butchery because this is one of the best books that DC's publishing. They have, everybody has their short stack. For me, Animal Man, since its inception, has wound up on the short stack of titles. The family dynamic that is going on here and how it feels real. There are consequences to the lifestyle of being a hero that has a dramatic effect on the family in so many ways, from how it psychologically affects his son Cliff, who is no longer with us. I'm hoping that doesn't stay. But whether it does or it doesn't, the psychological effects, like when you saw that annual where he was talking about with the new baby, what if she has powers and I don't? Where does that leave me? Would be something that a son who's the son of a superhero would be very concerned about. How does that affect my role and my station in the family pool? And I think that's a very normal reaction that we all have. When you have siblings, you question your place in the family tree. I like how that played into this. Everything feels very, very natural. Tragic events happen, or the character disappears for long periods of time due to being a hero. And these things drive and affect careers. They drive and affect the family relationship. And this is exactly what I mean when you'll hear, well, it's boring when you marry the heroes off because, really? Are you reading Animal Man? This is... Now, do you want to do this with every hero? No. But you could really make an argument that what's going on in Animal Man right now would look drastically different if it was Batman or if it was Superman and it was done right, which it's been many, many times. So this, to me, is a great argument for it's okay to take some of your heroes and play around with that, and maybe that relationship falls apart. And maybe that relationship, like we're seeing with what's going on in Animal Man, maybe the two people who are in love, like Ellen and Buddy, find their way back together. There's something about this family unit of the Baker family that you can't help but root for. They're the underdogs, but yet it's the fact that they support each other and seem to somehow keep finding their way back together in spite of all the quirks, in spite of mistakes, in spite of missteps, in spite of the world being against them many times. They stand together as a family and remind us what's important about a family unit. It's about acceptance of every facet of the person, good and bad. There's a message here that I think is really important in this book. I find it engaging, and this is an awesome title.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you on the coolness of this, and completely echo. As you're talking, I'm just kind of nodding my head, saying, let's let Sean roll with it, because you were on fire with that. this family unit has been something that has kept me into it. Now, I will admit you are more of the Animal Man fan than I am. Now, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying it's bad. It just, I don't know, for some reason, it's never made my top of my stack, but every time I read it, I go, dang, that's cool. But for some reason, I don't know what it is. Just with Buddy's not locked in. I think it's, for me, kind of, my little bit of my attention deficit disorder that I have, where like, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that. And it keeps, all the multiple titles keep drawing me away from it. And I see this big event here, I see this big event here going on, and it kind of like pulls me away. But every single time I sit down and read this, I eat it up, because it's, we get some great stories. You get that human side of the superhero, which it's, always funny to say human side of it when you got these guys with these supernatural powers, and the daughter who's pulled into the world of the red, and all this supernatural stuff. And you say, no, it's very realistic, very human side of it, because we see how regular, everyday people would react to it. I think that is the real strength of Animal Man, that we get this, if I was in this world, this is how I would have to deal with. This is kind of stuff that I would go through. And, unfortunately, I'm thinking, like, if this was my family, I probably would have been Cliff, and I probably would have gotten killed off, while, my sister would be, the superhero with the powers, or one of my brothers would have gotten the actual powers, and I would have been like the guy going, hey, what about me, man? Come on, I want some powers too. And I, immediately, reacted with Cliff, and really felt for him, and like, man, tough to be that kid, because I kind of could see myself being in his place. And then when he gets killed off, you see the pain that the parents go through. Once again, yeah, he's a superhero. Yeah, he's dealt with these massive events, but this is his son. This is her, her son. This is their child, and a parent should never outlive their child. And it was just a really cool, in a tragic, horrific moments, that I really was like, wow, this is some neat stuff.
I like that we see this moment where, as parents, Buddy's got to make a decision here. Brother Blood has used his blood to start, taking over the red, and really starting to overtake his daughter. In the sense, that's really the goal here, is to become that power, to become the third person in that trinity of power that we've got in with the rot and the green. And this, I like this lore. This is a cool mythos that DC's created with this. Kind of extending things that have been, certain things that have been a part of, especially Swamp Thing's world in the past, and really modernizing them and expanding great ideas from the past. This is awesome. I'm liking how this book ties into, without having to every issue, every arc, be a part of what's going on with Swamp Thing and stuff like. You don't have to have that. It makes sense that they're part of the same world. You feel like they're part of that same connected supernatural universe, but that times where you've got this storyline going on that's focused on these parents saying, we just lost our son because of this tragedy with our daughter. There's an opportunity here for us to team up together and to try and save and not lose another one, because she is important to us. I love that the position that she's in is because she was trying to go after her brother. Yeah. She was trying to say, I miss him. He matters to me. And at her age, the innocence of what she's doing feels so real. I love that the daughter and the wife and the mother-in-law, these are all characters that are just as important to me as Buddy is. This is a family unit. It's a book about a strong family unit that's well developed by a writer who clearly understands, hey, I have some opportunities here because of the way this book's crafted to tell some really unique stories that people are not going to be able to get in one of our other books because of the anti-marriage edict. And I think that's really cool that he's taking advantage of that, because I think it makes this book have a very special place in my heart, because I think you can connect with it as being a kid and having parents. I think you can connect with it for people that are reading this that are parents, with being parents trying to protect their kids. And you connect. I think there's a lot of different avenues and gateways into Animal Man that if you haven't read this book, you really should, because it's a very unique title that I think there's a lot of different ways. I think for some people, his daughter's going to be the gateway. I think for other people, Buddy's going to be the gateway. The wife could be the gateway. There's just different avenues to be like a part of what's going on in this title. I love that he's an actor. I like that his award is used, and it was just a matter-of-fact thing where she picks up the award and it happens to be his. Cheesy, corny, all that stuff too, but great. I like that kind of, it made me chuckle, it made me smile. I love the way that she reacted to the whole thing. It was just a really pivotal moment for me. And we got a chance to see her step up because she's witnessed so much being his wife that, yes, it's a scary moment. And she was put in a position where, because of the fact that there's people that are part of this blood cult, they have been like, wow, look what this has done for my career. Okay, I'm going to turn you over. I get that. But I love that she was taken aback by that, but knew what to do, knew to do something, and not just to be a victim. I like it when sometimes you'll see a character who's just a street-level normal person who just steps up because of the fact that they've been a part of this world. That was great.
Yeah, she's someone who, when everything started going down, I empathized with her for the loss of her son, but there was always going to be a part of me saying, come on, why are you blaming Buddy? Come on, it's not his fault. And, and I was immediately, siding more with Buddy than with her. I empathized with what she was going through, and I thought that was a really cool way she was being written to show the pain, to show the torment. But, in my head, I still was empathizing with Buddy. And this issue was a great moment, for me to see her step up and see her say, no more. Together we're going to do this together. We're going to get our daughter back together. This is, it was one of those kind of, we're home team. Time to, stand together, stand strong. And I love just seeing that, and I found myself once again cheering for her. She's a character that, in the past was like, yeah, she's a cool. I like the fact that she's dealing with the superhero nature. And then when she dropped off because of the pain from the funeral, okay, now she's recovering. Now she's coming back. And it wasn't even just one hit. She was taking out a couple of them. And again, seeing her be scrappy, had a definite level of impressosity, I had towards her character, towards the strength of who she is and where she's going to go down the line.
Impressosity.
Thank you, Freddie.
I really think that she is a character that, as she's been developed, it's really important if you're going to do a married couple in comics. I liked a book by Valiant called The Second Life of Dr. Mirage. And what happened was the husband, Dr. Mirage, came back as a ghost-like creature. And the wife became a very pivotal part of the story because she was the living person that was connected to the world. So it was great to see these two trying to maintain a relationship when he was intangible. It was like Kitty Pryde's phasing, but constantly stuck in phase. And I liked that element of it because both characters were equally important to the story. They had important roles, and they were well developed. This book is doing similar things in the sense that the wife is just as strong and developed a character where, what you're saying is great. We're 25 issues in, and we're rallying behind Ellen. We want to see her do this kind of thing. And I like that we've seen them stumble as a couple, heavily stumble, almost completely be destroyed as a couple, but circumstances has drawn them back together and shown the power of, in any family, if you're willing to forgive, you can find your way back together again. I think there's a powerful message there. And nowadays, I think we as a society throw in the towel too often on family. And I think there's something important in the message of this comic book to just say, hey, you know what? But at the end of the day, you're still family, No matter what, you're all affected by these events on some level. And Buddy was hurting just the way that she was hurting, and the two of them were pushed apart, but then coming back together with this common love for their daughter was something I think was great. And there's a message there that I think just really works in this. I just find it really endearing. It's a great book. I love when you got you got the sequence in here where they're trying to rescue their daughter and the sky's bleeding. I mean, and this is crazy, crazy stuff that their daughter is going through as well, but she is more comfortable with, just like they are. You know, it's interesting how the daughter has been exposed to so much now that things don't shock her. I mean, she's shocked, but not like a normal girl her age would be. But I think that feels real and natural because she's got a talking cat. And look at the look at the misfits that she's traveling in the boat with.
Shepherd.
Shepherd's great. That supporting cast is something that I think is really important. It's quirky, it's supernatural, it's odd. It's something I wouldn't be comfortable seeing this in a Batman book. You know, that cast of characters, they just don't fit. This is something that feels very Vertigo-y, which is good considering some of Animal Man's solo roots. And I'm glad to see that this book in this format is in the DC universe because it fits and it gives a different lens into a very unique and rich world.
And the other thing, we got to talk a little bit about the art for this book because this is another one of those where it's not what I would call a traditional comic book art, but it's perfect for this story that's being told. For this universe, for this type of style, I really dig how that this isn't classic comic book art. This is, it's its style. It's one of those things where the physical artwork is fitting the story being told, fitting the songs and the music and the sounds in my head are fitting the color schemes and fitting what I'm getting. And I really love when he's firing off the different animals, how they do kind of the shadowy image of the animal. So, you see exactly what animal it is, and you can figure out, okay, he's using the mantis, so he's using the strike. He's got the snake, so he's got the speed. Oh, he's got some monkey action going on, so it's a lot of the boom, 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 kind of like rapid fire fight style. I love seeing that, in with these action sequences.
I agree. That's one of the things that I really like is there's action sequences. I love when those manifestations of Buddy's different powers, that he has a different physical presence as they're manifesting. He almost becomes like that creature. And that's something that I think the art captures very well.
Oh yeah.
That it looks very different if he's a bird or if he's a tiger or a lion or a wolf or something like that, or smaller creatures that are being used for maybe their shell or protective features. That's something that I think the art and story has used dynamically depending on where he's at and his own memory. I like when he sometimes taps into creatures that you don't expect him to be able to. Where they're some kind of alien monster or something like that, where there's an animal-like, tendency to it, and he tries to tap into that and is shocked when he is able to, sometimes with some bizarre side effects. There's cool opportunities with Animal Man that make him such an interesting character. I also am a huge fan of his vulnerability. I think that makes him accessible. Where it's, I was talking earlier when we were having our Arrow discussion about how I love street-level characters, but I also really love superheroes. I love Superman, too, and Superman's a great character, but it's always fun to see Superman with his dun-dun-dun, like you always say. He's that character that you feel like he's above us, and Wonder Woman's got that confidence as well, and Batman does. He's up in that tier as well. But then when you've got a Buddy who feels like he is human, more like you can hang with Buddy and watch TV. And like Buddy's the guy that you like go out to dinner with and like hang and joke with and stuff like that, and you'd be able to like really open up with. He's that kind of guy. There's something about identifying with a comic book character on that level that I find really cool too.
I agree completely with that. That's it's Buddy is your buddy. It's the name. It's funny because the name really fits who he is. It fits his style. It fits his personality. And again, another quality of him is the fact that his identity is public. Another superhero where everything, this kind of fits how he's going. It fits, the way he's, being presented. I love the fact that everywhere he's going, he's getting these cameras, he's getting the lights, and he's being seen. And it's, it's going out there on, out there in the TV world, and just everyone's seeing, oh, there's Animal Man, the actor superhero. But he is a hero. And I love seeing these moments of, especially that when we really start seeing him and Ellen getting back together. And he's got that moment where, it's "You're my girl, Ellen," and they're that big kiss. And you can see all the flashing lights behind him, so there's tons of cameras catching all this. It's one of those true hero moments that if it was happening in real world, I'd be like, "Oh, that's cool!" I'd be like, "Yeah!" Then he disappears.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I think is really great too. Do you want Cliff to come back?
That's a tough call. Because on one hand, I say yes, because I don't want my friends to go through this pain anymore. I want them to have their kid back. But on the other hand, it is such a great storytelling usage. So I feel bad saying, let the kid stay dead. I hate being that cold, but it is a really cool story element. But, I don't know. If they could do the bring back, with the same epic build up, then yeah, I would want to see him come back, because I think it would be a really neat moment. You could get some really great moments between Ellen and Buddy if he came back. Especially if Maxine was part of the catalyst to help bring him back. Maybe a father-daughter both using the powers together, and you pull in the red and this and that, and everyone dun da da, kind of that big booming moment where he comes back. And then I'd want to see it. But if they're just bringing him back to bring him back, I don't want that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there has to be a story reason for it. See, I see I see if he is brought back, there would be some side effects to it.
Yeah, that's another thing you definitely need to have. Just afterwards, okay, now what? Did he get changed? Is he the same Cliff he was before? Maybe it was part of the rot who brought him back. So maybe there's a little darkness in him. Maybe there's a bit of the red in him. Maybe there's something else that we don't know. Maybe Cliff's a little bit different and he doesn't know it. We don't know it yet. It's something that could play out down the line.
I want him back in the worst way. I don't know why. I just want this family to, they have so much horrible that goes on. But here's the thing. I would have zero issue if the book doesn't, because everything you said is correct. There's an awesome storytelling opportunity that's already going on there with it. I think the storytelling is very, very rich, and I think we got that with the most recent annual. So I don't know, that I really have a huge preference, but I'm enjoying rooting for the family. And that's something I always want to do with this book. I want to continue rooting for this family. It's just a wonderful title. I love that he's, Buddy in space at the end, just randomly being ripped away from his poor wife, who's finally trying to give this guy a break. And I shouldn't say that the way that I do, because he's very lucky. Because with everything she's been through, oof. But I'm really, really digging this title.
Our next discussion will be Action Comics Annual number 2. It's Krypton Returns Part 1. The writer is Scott Lobdell, with pencils by Kenneth Rocafort and Dan Jurgens, colored by Tomei Moret and Blonde, with letters by Taylor Esposito, and cover by Kenneth Rocafort, with assistant editor Anthony Marquez and editor Eddie Braganza. And of course, Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangements with the Jerry Siegel Foundation family.
I want to shout out the artwork, and I don't know if it's Kenneth Rocafort or, I really enjoy the artwork on this, and Dan Jurgens doing the artwork as well. I ended up they have a statue coming out of Superman, this version of Superman, and it's based on the artistic designs of Kenneth. And I really am excited to get that. I don't do a whole lot of statues, but I just realized I don't have anything in my office area where, I usually record, that's Superman, Other than I've got a classic, metal on the wall, Superman, the classic, Superman with the logo symbol and things like that. But I don't have, a statue or a figure or something like that really is definitive of Superman. And I looked at that and I'm like, I really enjoy the art of this book. So I'm excited that I ordered it, and I'm excited to get that, because to me it's a gorgeous artwork sequence. This is a great storyline, because if you think about this has been building since that Zero issue.
Yeah.
And I really like that this has been something that's built over time. We've been teased this, and now we're finally getting it, and it's very satisfying how it's been developed. I'm very into this story. You are a resident Superman guy, and I'm salivating at this story. Where are you at?
Oh my God, dude! I've been doing the happy dance throughout all this because, as you said, this was something they teased at the Zero issue. We saw Clark on Krypton. We saw, Superboy and Supergirl all on Krypton. And you're like, how did they get there? Well, now we're starting to see where it's playing out. Now we're getting the answers to the question because the last issue we had Hal-El kill off not only Zod but killed off Jor-El before Kal-El was even conceived, before they even got married. So it's really just throwing off the whole timeline. And okay, how does it get fixed? Well, here's how we see it. Here's how it's getting fixed. Here's how everything is going to play out. And that was something that I was like, dang, this is cool because it's pulling all the Superman books in together, bringing them, kind of through the story, all the characters, bringing the three together. And it's going to be one of those moments of Superman family building that I was like, yes, yes. And as, it got me completely once again, really just excited to read Superman. I was always enjoying Superman. I'm always like, yeah. But I was always, salivating at the Bat stories, salivating at the Year One stories, all these great, cool stuff that was going on in the Bat universe. I was like, dang it, I want something cool for Superman. Well, I've got my cool. I've got my, oh my God, this is awesome moments coming out of all three of these titles. So it's, I'm giddy here. I'm just like, yay.
This is a critical direction for Superman because I'm with you. I feel like the Superman books have kicked it up now. I'm with you. Like, this story I'm salivating over. I've loved every chapter. I've loved the build to it. I love that there's a genuine build to this storyline. I really care. I like that the threat feels very real. Superman feels like he's in danger. Supergirl feels like she's in danger. And Kal-El feels like he's also in danger. Khan feels like he's in danger. He's not Kal-El anymore, right? Those things really matter to me in this. That there are villainous threats, and the whole issue of, now that we're on Krypton, we got some problems coming. Those are some things that I'm really enjoying as well. Like, they can absorb a certain amount of sun, but that's only going to go so far for them. This kind of stuff, this danger, is things that I'm really, really enjoying with this storyline. The Oracle, and the idea that time is being set in a horrible, horrible path. We've got Supergirl and Superboy who don't get along. And even though they've sort of attentively agreed not to kill each other, that they're tasked with saving the universe as a team when that's very, very hard to do considering their relationship. And I understand her backstory. We actually get to see some of that developed in this further and get to understand a little bit more of her background. This is one of the things that I really enjoy when the three of them are thrust together, getting to see that relationship continue to grow. How her relationship with Clark, from where it was in the beginning of the New 52, has developed, where there's a respect there that wasn't there previously. There's also a belief on who he is now that wasn't there previously. That's been established over time from trust. I liked that realism, too, that she didn't automatically believe that, hey, you are who you say you are. Well, there's a lot of Kryptonians. How do we know you're who you say you are? You were a baby when I last saw you. That stuff is great. I really appreciate that about the way that the Superman books are developed.
And it's kind of neat seeing all this, how it's playing out. These are still factors that are coming into the current story. There's, the fact that she technically is older than Clark, but, because of the way they both came to Earth, things changed. I love that in this annual, we had that one moment where Khan realizes, hey, wait a minute, you're older than him? We'll talk about it later. It's just one of those, wait, what's going on here? Where he sees life differently than those two. She's been to Krypton. She was actually born, raised, grew up on there. And, Clark really hasn't had that type of interaction with it. And I love just seeing him get a feel for what Krypton is. I love seeing Superboy get a feel for what life is on Krypton. And then even Kara, where her part plays into this. It was a really cool, just kind of, as they're understanding Krypton, we're learning about Krypton. And it was a really, great way to pull the reader in, and great way to keep the story going and actually start off, right from, starting off, right at 60. There's no buildup. Bam, we hit the ground running. We get, full tilt. And I love that kind of, that, it has to go this quick. You got to keep on your feet. You can't slow down. It's that dun 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 dun, constant moving. Got to keep going, because you make one little mistake, guess what? The whole universe is gone.
The Oracle and the sense of time progression with the Oracle. You know how the Oracle's damaged in certain sequences, but then we see later on the Oracle having a herald and things like that. I know I'm jumping around a little bit in the storylines, but it's kind of hard not to, because when you're dealing with time travel and cosmic characters, there's a lot of times where you'll see power sources that are attacked and all of a sudden seem to restructure themselves, and you understand why they've been around for so long, and they feel somehow larger than life. Being tasked by a creature like the Oracle, the way that they are in this, becomes, because it's cryptic. They're told, they're only told so much, and it's because some of it's the nature of the Oracle and its personality, its own way of operating. I love that there's something that feels otherworldly about the Oracle. The Oracle does not feel like Superman's buddy. That's something that to me is an important key to a character like that. This character should stand out, and does. And that's something that I think has been very well established and developed. I want to know more about the Oracle as time goes on.
Oh, definite. And one of the things that I like, the fact that you talk about how the time travel, how things are going to jump around. And you need to have that type of, like with all the best time stories, you see one action here affects this over here. And there's got to be that cause and effect. And you see that as the story's playing out through Supergirl and Superboy, as they're accomplishing different stuff, their story's changing. Their stories are starting to mesh. And even with Feora, Zod's, partner in crime and or the most hated female in the history of Krypton. Well, with Hel-El coming into the play, with her being there, guess what? Her role has been changed. Her part in this whole universe has been adjusted. Now, if they are successful in recreating everything the way it was, she's once again going to become this monster. And I think that's kind of a neat notion of where this is going to go, the possibilities of how it's going to play out. They're going to be responsible for creating this monster, but you kind of need to have Zod. You need to have this massive evil force, to have the whole story play out.
For me, being able to see the vast landscapes of Krypton is something. I'm a fantasy fan. I love fantasy movies. As a kid, I grew up loving fantasy books. I love Terry Brooks, Tolkien. I remember I still have the box set that I have 7th grade. For the first time I read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. My father got me the box set because I had read The Hobbit from the library and liked it so much that my dad just got me the box set for the whole thing. I still have it to this day because I love rich fantasy worlds. When you take a marriage of that and you mix that in for sci-fi fantasy like this, it's some of the things I like about Star Wars, because Star Wars has the space fantasy kind of thing going on, because you'll get these worlds on Star Wars with like a rich, sprawling landscape like this. There's something about an artist having the ability to put this stuff together. This world is something I'd want to explore, but it feels alien. There's not a lot about Krypton that looks like Earth, especially when you get deep into the landscape and you see some of the creatures and the fauna and stuff like that. And it shouldn't. I like that part of it.
Yeah, it's one of those things about with an alien world. We've seen so many on the different titles and the different things that I like the fact that the creative team, they're not like, I don't know, how do I word it? They're not pulling from, the past lore where it's just the pure crystalline. They're not pulling from here. This is Krypton. It has its own unique feel to it. And that's something that throughout all these issues, as we've getting all these different interactions in these different titles, I always feel, that everything, it's connected. There's a great synergy between all of them coming together. And it's one of those, I don't know, editorial art teams working together or how things played out. But, even though we do have different artists, we have different art styles, it still has that same feel, that same vibe to it. And that's something that I was really pleased with as you have these interconnecting stories, as this giant crossover going on. You need to have that connection. You need to have that synergy. And I was very happy to see that.
Yeah, that's something that the energy, you mentioned it a lot, but I think that's something that has evolved over time in the Superman family books. There's been a positive energy. It's funny, for the longest time, I was really enjoying the most books like Supergirl. Supergirl was actually my favorite for quite a while. Now I like how that kind of energy, I guess, lore, it's not to say that I didn't like the other books, but that was kind of my standout. I don't know why. I was just kind of connecting with her as a character and her view of Earth. You know, coming here as an alien and having like this kind of connection with the world, trying to find her place in this world that was clearly foreign to her. And now we're getting a Superman universe where there's an energy that's like that. There's an excitement around both of the other characters that wasn't there on the same level. And I like that that's happening with these characters and with this world, because that energy, I think, is very important for a Superman book.
Oh, definitely. You know, and you have to have those, you know, those dun-da-da, you know, moments. And we're definitely getting that out of all of the different characters. And that's something that I really enjoyed seeing, you know, especially, you know, some of the Superboy stuff where we're really seeing Superboy step up. He's not Clark. He's not Kara. He's his own entity. He's his own person. But we are seeing those hero moments. You know, when you think about when he first came on the scenes, he didn't really understand the role of a hero. He didn't understand what it meant to be a super. He didn't, you know, really get the feeling behind that big red S on his chest. And you know, when he learned later he was designed to be this killing machine, and it really kind of messed with his head. Well, now he's going, I'm not that. I'm not the sum of my parts. I am my own person. I am my own entity. And you see him step up. You see him do these heroic moments. And you know, Superboy was, you know, back in the day was I really, really digged him as a hero, and I love seeing him, you know, become, you know, this, you know, epic hero. And then when he made his final sacrifice, and I was very upset because this was a great hero that I wanted more stories out of. Well, I'm seeing that hero, that same hero that I really enjoyed in the other universe. Well, guess what? Now, you know, we're 25 issues in. We're building up the hero. We have this groundwork. He's not throwing out what he was, but he's becoming something more. He's evolving. He's maturing as a hero. And I really dig seeing that, you know, throughout these processes, throughout all these different issues coming together.
That's something that when you're talking about Superboy, I like the development of the relationship between Kara and Superboy. I know I talked about this before, but there's little bits where you start to see cracks in her viciousness towards him, particularly when, like, the Oracle takes him over.
Yeah.
She could have let him die there. She didn't. She recognized that he was getting burnt out and stopped it. So there's a part of her that's seeing a different side to him that I'm really growing to love. I like that it's similar to how her relationship developed with Cal, and that's something that I think when you do it over time, and that's a strength of serialized storytelling, if you don't rush things, they matter more. They feel more real-time, and it feels like that relationship's growing in front of you, and you're a part of that experience. This is something that they're really capturing well now in the Superman books that I think is pretty essential. This drawing us in to developing relationships behind these characters that we love. Really great stuff. Fiora?
Okay, yeah.
A favorite character, right?
Oh, God, yeah. And again, you see her come in. She's a completely different person, but she understands why they hate her. They understand, you know, she's got the knowledge from the Oracle of what they know. So she knows why they resent her, why they, you know, her original path. And it was, you know, seeing them initially react and go, no, we got to understand it. And just that trusting and then eventually even following directions from her was a cool progression through the pages. But again, it was something that kept popping in my head that, you know, when they are successful with this person who was their ally is going to become their enemy again. She won't have any of this knowledge of what she had to do, her sacrifice she made for the greater good. You know, and I don't even know if they'll remember her sacrifice. So it's going to be kind of a neat thing to see her come back after everything is set correctly, because that's, you know, something just down the line. I'm wondering if they're going to remember, if she's going to remember this, if they're going to remember it. What is going to be the after effect knowledge?
Yeah, that's something that is making me wonder as well, the after effect knowledge of all this. Because with time, anytime there's time issues, there's certain things that, you know, tend to bleed into each other. I have a feeling these guys are going to remember this, though. Having been a part of this event for some reason, maybe the Oracle will have something to do with their memory staying intact. I don't know.
Well, I'm assuming the three will remember it, but nobody else will. That's my opinion. Yeah, where I think,
Except, and this is where, I'm sorry, you go ahead and finish, and then I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm sorry,
I was just thinking the three of them will remember, but not everybody else, because they are pulled from the timeline. Now, she has a chance of remembering because she's also been kind of pulled by the Oracle, and she's been kind of upgraded, and her knowledge has been tweaked as well. So she may remember, but I was leaning towards at the end of when everything's said and done, these three are going to remember what happened, but nobody else. Everybody else, it'll be just the story is how it played out originally.
I'm wondering, though, if there aren't going to be certain changes that happen. Anytime you dabble in time, there's usually consequences. Our next episode, we're going to do a pop culture and whatnot, talking about Doctor Who. Time travel storyline, there's usually an opportunity for there to be some kind of either positive or negative, sometimes unintended, happening.
Yeah.
Other times, deliberately intended by some player in the game. I wonder how this is going to play out. What consequences are going to be from this? I don't know, but I'm really loving the possibilities. And if you're right, and it just winds up being that they set everything right and it allows the universe to continue on as it should, I'm cool with that, because that's their edict right now, to try and come up with that and try to make that happen. So if they actually succeed and that's how it plays out, I'm completely cool. But it'd be interesting to see if there isn't some echo of the dabbling that plays into the current New 52 because of it. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And it's funny, as I said that, I remembered from Superboy and Supergirl 25 with the Eradicator. Mm-hmm. He gets tweaked and sent from Krypton to Earth by Superboy. So right there, that's going to change something, where we're going to have the Eradicator on Earth, and maybe that's his introduction to Earth and his introduction to the DC universe and how he's come about. Well, for Superboy to defeat him, that's how he got rid of him, to kind of fix the timeline. Well, they're fixing the Kryptonian timeline, but they just tweaked Earth timeline now with having him be on Earth. So that could be where's this going to play out? Now,
the previous Eradicator is a character you're very familiar with.
Right.
So what did you think of the new Eradicator?
Oh, I kind of liked it. Again, and tweaked to the story, and, they pulled it from there, and they laid enough groundwork on it that I wasn't expecting the exact same person and the exact same story. So as you can change some stuff around, and I'm okay with it as long as it's not just boom, we're changing it just for the heck of it. No, they changed it to fit the story, to fit where everything's playing out, especially with Hillel, everything where it's kind of, everything's coming off of him. It's coming off of the clones. It's coming off of all these different, the stories interconnect. And I thought that was a kind of a neat usage of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually really enjoyed the fact that it was something that felt true to the story, and it would be something that Hillel would be saying to himself, I need to put some defenses in place for what's potentially coming, because I know this is what's happening. Back to that whole sequence with Faora, when we see her come into play, we see Clark and Supergirl and Superboy taking a look at the landscape of the way Krypton is, because it's back and restored, but it's a slave camp. These aren't people that are free. They've suffered because they've still been alive. So sometimes what you hope, be careful what you wish for, you may get it, has come to fruition. So this becomes a pivotal thing. These people are alive, and there's a chance to free them. Do you free them? Do you set the universe right? They know if they try to free them and let them live, what happens is they keep that time stream in place, which is already poking holes in the fabric in time and threatens to destroy everything, including Krypton once again. So now they've got to make the horrible decision of setting this right and causing, again, the genocide of a planet. A very difficult decision to be put in. Easy when you're seeing they're faceless people, and you're thinking about the people you know and love on your home planet, Earth, which is arguably, is it the home planet or not? I don't know. I guess Superman's adopted planet. Let's go there. And Kara's new adopted planet. But now when you're actually faced with home, for Kara especially, this is going to be a very, very difficult decision. And I like the way this has been playing out in the storyline. Of course, before they have a chance to get started, Hillel shows up, and they need to jump into the past. Yeah. And I like that they're set onto 3 separate missions that crisscross each other. in their own ways, where there's opportunities for them to encounter people from their past, including Superboy being able to encounter a very young Kara Zor-El. Very cool stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I like the fact that with Kara, when she was given the task of, with the Great War, she had to stop it. She's like, hey, but that's established lore. We're changing the past. How are we any better than Hel-El? And it's, she's got a question, okay, where's this going to go? Because, again, that got me thinking, are we going to see, that Connor or Kara are going to end up having to make sure that this horrific event that happened in Krypton's past actually happens, but happens in a different way? Will they tweak it? Will they keep things exactly how it was? Are we going to see them having to do some horrific stuff? Or is this actually how it was supposed to play out?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a very interesting turn of events there.
Yeah, especially because you think about with all the stuff of Connor with his past. Well, I keep calling him Connor, even though he's not Connor. With Con-El, with everything of his past, and just how you think back to the early issues of Superboy, where we saw the inner programming that was going on with him about the war, about the clone armies, about the killing of Krypton. He's now getting thrust into that mix. He's now going to be a part of that. And he's actually going to see it. Is this going to trigger something? Or was he always meant to be there? Is this one of those things where time, what we thought was the past happened one way, in reality happened this other way? And we're now seeing this was always meant to be in the destiny of the universe. This was always meant to be.
The art shift didn't bother me at all. It was actually done at a really interesting time. When we started shifting from the kind of present-day Krypton, the returned Krypton, to the past Krypton, we had that art shift. I thought it worked really well. Like, I think sometimes, and you're seeing it less in comics, jarring art shifts aren't really happening so much now. There's a more planned way of easing the reader into that, to the point where I found both art styles to be very enjoyable. And I think the coloring sequence being so familiar helped. And it was very well done. It was very pleasing art, and I really just have enjoyed the issue immensely.
Yeah, and I loved the differences between the jungle scenes and then Argo City scenes, where you get that vegetation, you get that kind of craziness going on, but then you get to the city where boom, it's the city, and but it's not. As you said, it's not a jarring, oh my God, this is messing me up type of stuff, where it flows through and you get this natural kind of, acceptance and just understanding where you don't really even see it too much.
I liked in the actually, let me shout out Superboy 25's creative team. It's Scott Lobdell on plot, Justin Jordan, Michael Allen Nelson, and Lobdell on dialogue, Ed Bennis on art, Tanya and Richard Horry on colors, Travis Lanham letters, Kenneth Rocafort cover, Associate Editor Ricky Purdon, Group Editor Eddie Berganza, Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, Superboy created by Jerry Siegel, Supergirl based on characters created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. Those acknowledgments I think are really cool, actually, which was worth saying. But this was where we saw the first appearance of the Eradicator. This is a great example of just cool art teams being put on these books, because it's a very, very pretty book. You've got super action sequences that are happening here from both Superboy and Kara in sequences where, we were seeing her fighting the clones, and Superboy, we're seeing what his power set really is like being on Krypton. The fact that because he's a clone winds up giving him an advantage that really the other two don't have. Which I think is really cool.
Oh God, yeah, and the fact that his powers really aren't based on the yellow sun. It's not. We see the tactile telekinetics. We see the different stuff that make him his own individual hero, his own different type of fighting style. He's really coming into his own with what he can do, how he throws down. We saw him. Really, in the last couple of issues, I've really seen him step up his game in his knowledge, in his various tactics and strategery that he uses. He's personalizing how he's fighting these villains, and I'm absolutely ecstatic to see it.
You know what's growing on me? Yeah, and I'm not even acknowledging it. What's growing on me is the costumes.
Yeah,
like these are costumes before that I was really, not Superboy's as much as Kara's and Superman's, I was really uncomfortable with. Now they're really growing on me, particularly Superman's suit. When we see, because he's on Krypton now, and you see him encountering his mom, the suit has morphed a little bit. I really like that some of this is due to the location, and we see it eventually developing the symbol of the House of El and stuff like that. But him having to deal with his mom as a combatant, and, you know, this not obviously not being the meeting that he'd want with her, these are moments that are really critically important to me. Probably the highest moments in this issue for me were when we finally got to see him encountering Mom. I was geeking out at every kick, punch, dialogue piece, whatever you wanted to throw at it, because it was that moment that I've been waiting for since the beginning of the New 52.
You know, talking about costumes, from day one, I really liked the Superman costume, but part of me always, and I remember us having this conversation where I said, you know, part of me would kind of like to see, you know, a passing of the torch, maybe, you know, Connor shifting his colors to the red and the blue. And I remember, you know, and we even had this conversation where you're like, you know, I kind of like the blacker, and I like his own personalization of it. And I always said it'd be kind of neat if they all, you know, shared the same color scheme, and it would be, you know, they're the Superman family. I'm going to throw that out the window now, because really Connor is showing he is of the House of El. He is part of this family in his style, in his look. And I really, really dig just how cool the red and the black look and just how things are playing out. Now, I've always been kind of a cape guy, so part of me wouldn't mind if he somehow got a cape attached to it. But even without the cape, even as he is, the straight, sleek, just the you know, the bright red on the black field, it looks really cool. And it's, again, it fits for him. It works for him. He's not exactly, you know, of the other two, but he is still representing the house. He still is a member of that family. And as, you know, time progresses with the three of them and their relationship, he doesn't need to shift over to the blue, you know, the blue and the red and the yellow, etc. He can stay exactly how he is, and he's still part of that crew. And that was something that these past issues really kind of hit home for me, seeing him represent the family, seeing him step up and do what needs to be done to save the future, to save the present, to save the past. And I was like, that's kind of cool to see.
I really like the differences in the costumes and the similarities you're mentioning, because of the fact that they feel like they're part of the same family. But I like when you look at Kara Zor-El's costume, there's a clear style difference that is reminiscent of Clark's, but is unique to her. Superboy's, I don't know that I want to see him with a cape. And I get, first of all, I get your geek out on capes. I think there's a time where maybe I'd like to see him in a storyline where he's wearing more of a classic costume, but there's something about him having his own identity. I think what happens sometimes is you've got to have a nice balance of making them, like you're saying, feel they're a part of that same family, but also at the same time have a unique presence and personality and an identity that shows through the costume, the actions, the behavior. Otherwise, the characters become just like, you don't want Supergirl to feel like she is a female version of Superman. You want her to feel like she's Supergirl, and that's a unique personality, unique identity that stands on its own. Superboy, I got to be cautious on that one, because I always loved him being the younger Superman. That part was cool. So I grew up enjoying that character, and I still love that concept. But this isn't that Superboy. This is a clone. And that part I really dig, where there is something about that character that should feel like it's echoing Superman, but not a direct relation to Superman. That echoing is a lot of the connectability you're talking about and you're geeking out about. And amen, I agree with it. But there is also that unique nature to him that makes him that hero you talked about earlier, that you geek out so much over. It's that something special that sets him aside, that makes him just different enough from Superman that you rally behind him for very different reasons. And it makes certain things that he does more heroic in some ways than what you would expect from Superman, because they're things that aren't as ingrained in him as they are in Clark. And that distinction's important.
Oh, yeah. And it was funny because the with Kara and her fighting and her action and her style, it was something that kind of second, third read through that it really started clicking just where, her main difference between her and Clark is she went through the trials. She prepared for her trials. She did the training. She did the fighting style. And her one friend is, military background, military family. So she's, has some combat training. And it was something that really played out in these two issues, where you really see her throw down. She initially starts off with the power base, but she knows she's going to burn through it, so she's got to rely on her other tactics. She's got to rely on the physical fighting styles and just who she is and what she's about. And I really liked seeing that transition for her, where she went from using the heat vision to burn, the spear, to actually going and getting physical with these guys and throwing down and showing, okay, it's time to go. This is go time. I'm not completely powerless. I'm not weak. I am a fighter. And I loved just seeing that come out of her. Again, it's those hero moments where you got to step up and you got to go to the past. You got to know who you are and what you're about. And it was more just quality moments of, this character development and growth of me going, yes, she is awesome.
I liked getting to know Lara and Kara through older and younger versions of themselves.
Yeah.
That was kind of neat to see them in more innocent phases of their lives, but then also how circumstance had changed them over time. That's something that I think if you don't take advantage of that in time travel, boy, are you missing the boat. And this story has done it so well. It's been a very nice balance. We were geeking out about Arrow earlier. We're loving in Arrow being able to see the island and that past history being developed and how that is still impacting today current events in the modern storytelling in Arrow. We're seeing that same thing playing out here in this Krypton Returns storyline. If I could real quick, I just want to shout out the creative team for Supergirl, because we're kind of organically talking about these. Krypton Returns Part 3, the plot by Scott Lobdell, dialogue by Scott Lobdell, Michael Allen Nelson and Justin Jordan, art by Paulo Siqueira, colors by Hi-Fi, letters by Rob Lay, cover by Kenneth Rocafort, associate editor Ricky Purden, and group editor is Eddie Berganza. And I just, want to shout out again, apologies for any name butchery, but we're seeing, this is the part where I'm talking about at the beginning of that Supergirl issue, where you see Oracle in its full splendor, without being so damaged like we saw it in the beginning of the Action Comics annual. And this is something that's great about time travel, is you get to see these cosmic beings. I've always liked characters like Galactus with the Silver Surfer and stuff like that. There's something about cosmic characters that make you feel, they should feel larger in life, awe-inspiring. This was well done here. It's something that was really needed at this point in the storyline, and I'm glad they didn't rush to this, because this should feel like a major cosmic happening. This could affect everything that they're all about. Do you think the Oracle would be destroyed by this, or is it that the Oracle is trying to prevent seeing any of this stuff destroyed?
I think in the end, the Oracle will be fine. It'll be the rest of the universe that's destroyed. Mm-hmm. I think the Oracle will, the Oracle can bob and weave and can adjust to how the universe plays out. It's just mankind, Earth, Superman, Krypton, none of it will be there. It's kind of like the age-old argument where people talk about, we're destroying the planet, and, with all our pollution and waste and this, we're destroying the planet. We're not destroying the planet. We're just making the planet inhospitable for human life. We're destroying our existence on the planet. The planet will still be here when mankind is, wiped itself out for whatever stupid thing we do. The planet will come back. Maybe it'll be the time for the insect, or maybe the fish in the sea will get a fair shot, or who knows what time it'll be, but it'll just be the age of man will be gone. Same thing, I think, with the universe and with the Oracle. The Oracle, won't be destroyed. The Oracle will be fine. It'll be just in a different format, a different shape, and a different appearance. And I think that's part of the reason why we have, you talk about how he's got parts here, then he's got whole body, he's got heralds here, he doesn't have heralds there. It just, as the timeline changes, as, adjustments happen to the time stream, he's adjusting with it, or she's adjusting with it, whatever case may be.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about this confrontation between Hel-El and Supergirl was her chance to explain her side of it, and that, through rage, to say, you're not the only one that was hurt here. What do you think this did to me? I did love you. But then this is what happened, and I was forced to make this choice because you were destroying this world. You brought me this hope of restoring Krypton, but then at what cost? And made me make this horrible choice. And that would be something she would blame him for. I think oftentimes when relationships end, people have trouble seeing both sides of it. And that's something that I really enjoyed about this, the fact that that was explored, with some real depth to it. That's something you get with time travel, too, now that these two are finally coming back together again. I liked their story. That was something that I really gravitated towards. Once again, seeing, Kara have to make that choice to sacrifice her world. It's something that Clark, through this arc, is maybe going to be able to relate to her in a level that he wasn't able to before.
Oh, yeah, because you think about it right now, Clark, out of all of them, Clark has had the quote-unquote easiest time with it. Yeah, he just got his butt kicked by his mom, and I thought that was hysterical, where just he breaks into the house, and she's like, oh, you thought it'd be easy because Jor-El's here? He's not here to protect you. And she's just beating the crud out of him, and I actually really found that hysterical because, she is the warrior. She is the combatant of the two of them. The dad's the scientist, she's the powerhouse. And I thought that was kind of a neat, play on it. Every time we've seen those stories where they talk about old Krypton, and we talk about her, and they show her, and you see that side of her, I always kind of chuckle and liked seeing it. But up until this point, he's had it relatively easy. He's hanging out, he's learning his family. Both Superboy and Supergirl have been dealing with some serious heavy stuff on their hearts, and they're dealing with this. And I loved seeing how she, unleashed just all that, that pain, everything she was going on. But there was never a point in time when I thought it made her weaker. To me, this was a really cool moment for her to stand up and say, hey, this is what I went through. This is what you put me through, you idiot. There could have been something here. There could have been something great, but you lied, you cheated, you manipulated. It's your fault on this one. Don't put the blame on me. Don't say I did anything wrong. And I'd loved seeing her stand up and be very powerful and just that strong will, that strong female character, that strong female hero, that strong personality. And it was a really cool moments where she's accentuating just these powerful dialogue moments with some really cool fighting sequences. Once again, she may be weakened from the Red Sun. He may have a piece of kryptonite in his hand, but she's not going down without a fight. She's throwing down and she's giving as well as she's getting. And I've loved just seeing her, have that combat.
I like the whole thrust up with the palm, that heavy bone, knowing that going to the nose, no matter who you are, what size you are, how powerful that is, that's a bone that's not going to give. And shoving that into a weak spot like that buys time, sends the other person, that's jamming them right into their face, their eyes, it's causing blindness, it's causing everything that it's doing is taking advantage of the fact that this is a woman who knows how to survive and was taught this by partially at a very deep level by Lara. And I like how that energy, you were talking about energy earlier, I like how that the energy kind of comes back together. The warrior grabbing the weapon and taking advantage of that. It adds some really cool moments as this sequence continues into Kryptonopolis, and Clark in the black outfit that's slowly morphing into a more traditional Superman suit that we're used to seeing. Yeah. I just like that.
Now, one of the things that I was kind of wondering about, and I want to throw this out at you and seeing if, when everything plays out, we have a younger Kara with Superboy, when this story plays out, is she going to remember this interaction that they had? Or because she was pulled out of the timeline, she won't remember it, or will she? Because that's something I was kind of curious about. Will there be kind of like that, that knowledge, sweep, or as everything catches up, she remembers, oh yeah, I remember this guy helping me and getting me off the planet and saving my life, or when everything is said and done, will that all come back into play?
I don't know. That's the part that is getting very interesting to me. What will come back into play? That's part of these types of storylines, is if there's no ramifications from this on some level, then what's the point of the story? There's going to be ramifications to this. Relationships changing, whatever. There's going to be certain ramifications to it. That's the part you're mentioning. A lot of things, will they, won't they? Will this happen, won't this happen? Will this be remembered, won't it be remembered? That's half the fun of a time travel story, is what will be erased and what won't be. That part I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and even because, and it was something actually it took like a second read through for me really to catch a grasp of it, where we have the Superboy and Supergirl story meshing together. We have the moments where he, attacks Hel-El, knocks him through the paradox, and then she goes into, we kind of get that merging. Because, she cuts her version of Hel-El, and then Superboy sees his version get the gash. We start seeing them meshing together, and when Khan comes through, he's in that, the clone evil Khan, format. That leader that was of the clone resistance and all that, who was that, that evil version of himself. When he comes through, and it's him fighting Hel-El, it's, Kara there. So we're getting some cool meshing that's going on. And it's one of those things where I've had to go through, and I like the fact that I have two books open at the same time. I'm doing kind of jumping back and forth and saying, okay, here's this, here's that, but it is a kind of a flow. It is a definite flow through, and it has me excited for Superman 25, where the story continues on, and we start seeing, Clark's side of this, how he plays out, where he's going to go, and basically the big finale kind of to this. I say kind of because this is going to be a story that even when we have our ending, there's going to be the lasting ramifications. This is going to be a character that'll come into play, whether it's the Eradicator now on Earth, whether it's Hel-El, whether it's whatnot. I don't know.
One of the things that's confusing me, well, not really confusing me, it's kind of confusing Hel-El, is this sense of the fact that he is in multiple times at once.
Yeah.
And there's multiple versions of him happening. We kind of saw this in the prelude to this storyline, where he was able to see multiple happenings at one time. That's going to mess with somebody's head. Being like not in sync with and present in the here and now, your judgment is going to be fatally flawed. And we're seeing like circumstances where Kara's slicing him, and yet our heroes are seeing that in their present day.
Yeah.
And the fight with Superboy and Supergirl happening concurrently in two different time streams, I thought was fantastic. I love that kind of stuff, where it makes you start thinking about possibilities. And this is where I'm a time travel junkie. So this kind of stuff is just something I eat up right away, especially when you see him saying the same things to both, and they're both reacting to it at the same time, not knowing.
Yeah, it's the whole with the time stream where is everything open? Is it, or is it a closed loop? Is it, kind of, do you have the Back to the Future type of storytelling where you knock down a pine and it's now no longer the Twin Pines Mall, but the Lone Pine Mall? Or is it a closed loop where once you deviate off the timeline, you're creating a whole new universe. You're creating a new timeline. How is the flow going through? And whenever you deal with the time, I always kind of jump around what story way I like it, which way I don't like it. And, for me, with the comic book, you kind of need to have that open line. That way you need to have that, giant interacting loop, because if they're going to fix the present, we have to make sure that this past they're going to is still part of it. So I really liked seeing these things merge together. And it was something that, second, third read-throughs, you get that ending, at the end of the ending blip, where they say it's concluded in Superman number 25 with the grand finale of Krypton Returns, the death of a hero, and the most shocking ending yet. Now, a lot of times those teasers, you're like, okay, who exactly are they going to kill off? What hero dies? Is it going to be a dead? Is it going to be just a storyline dead? What's going to happen? And it's one of those things when you're dealing with time like this, one of these characters can get sacrificed and can let themselves die, but if it reboots the whole universe, they're still back again. It's kind of a who's going to die, what's going to happen, who is going to be the quote-unquote hero that dies.
One of the things that I really enjoy about this storyline is, as I'm reading it, the revelations that Kara has about the clones. Like, I beat them, so now their tribal instinct is to defend me. And she's not quite sure how to react to that, because her thought process has always been hatred and distrust. Now she's seeing them a different way and maybe understanding, well, perhaps they weren't responsible for their behavior. What does that mean? That part is going to be very interesting in the future of her understanding of these characters. And what is that going to look like next issue? Like in Superman 25? How is that going to further develop? And what will this do to her relationship with Connor? I love that stuff. I mean, just very well played out.
Yeah, for me, there's a lot of excitement now in the Superman universe. And there's a lot of excitement going, okay, where's this going to go? What's next? Come on. I want more.
Now I can get out of here.
Jim, I want to shout out our show voicemail line, which is actually going to be on our next episode. We're going to be doing a very special pop culture and whatnot episode, and we're going to have our voicemails on that. Our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. That's always available on our show website and in our show notes. So we love having you a part of the show, and those will be on our next episode for sure. So feel free to call in between now and then. We also have a Facebook group, which is an amazing community of people. We have a regular Facebook page as well. We have a Google Plus page. We also have Twitter that's linked to our show website, RagingBullets.com. RagingBullets.com is where you're going to go if you want to find out updates on when the show release is happening. I tend to, as I'm working on the episodes, post updates to keep people informed because I really appreciate that you guys support our show and want to know what's going on. So I want to make sure we're communicating with you. That's why we have access to all those different social media platforms as a way to make sure we're connected with our audience because we appreciate your time that you give us. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Remember, DCBService.com is where you can pick up books like Action Comics, $3.99 regularly, 40% off, only $2.39. If you start doing the math and you're saving that kind of a deal, 40% every month, think about the amount of reading you can be doing and maximizing. We all are on tight budgets these days, and comic books are expensive. They're a wonderful medium, and this is a way to get more comics using sponsors like DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, don't forget about the Batman Detective Comics hardcover Volume 3 Emperor Penguin, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49 for a 192-page hardcover. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, Jim, a lot of people have been asking us about doing another pop culture and whatnot show, and we've been wanting to do another one. Well, the Doctor Who 50th anniversary episode just came out. I'm a huge Doctor Who geek, and you, as usual, one of the great things about working with you is, Jim, you're a yes man, and I love working with you because you're up for anything. I asked you if you would be interested in watching that show and perhaps doing an episode around it, and you joined in as always, and I'm really excited to talk to you about Doctor Who on our show. So that's going to be our next one, the Day of the Doctor. We're going to take a look at the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who and just talk about Doctor Who in general. We're also going to have our show voicemails. So it's going to be a nice packed episode, and that's going to be coming in less than a week. So we're going to end off, that's going to be our last episode for November, so we will have 4 November episodes. We will see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.